You're listening to the Life Coaching Secrets Podcast, episode 252. Did you know that life coaches are needed now more than ever? I'm Frank Macri, founder of Thriving Coach Academy. I've trained over 1,000 coaches and helped them launch their own successful coaching businesses. If you want to make an incredible income and impact as a coach and have a lot of fun doing it, I'll show you exactly how to get it done. This is Life Coaching Secrets. What's up, coaches? In this episode, I am going to talk about some of the bad coaching advice that sounds good. I call these the traps in coaching. And I'm going to share with you the most common ones that a lot of coaches fall into and how to make sure that you don't fall into these traps when you're in sessions with clients. Now, if you are new here, welcome to the podcast. We are having the summer of coaching, where this summer I'm releasing lots of episodes on this podcast, all things coaching, all things entrepreneurship. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel so you get notified when we have new episodes. I'm so excited to be spoiling you with lots of episodes over this summer. All right, so let's get into it. Now, there is a type of coaching that sounds really supportive on the surface, but it actually weakens people over time and it limits your client's success. And the scary part is it's actually really common. And a lot of the traps I'm going to share with you on the surface, they sound really compassionate, they sound very safe, and they might even seem empowering, but they're not, because underneath a lot of modern coaching language, there's an unintentional pattern of peeping. There's an unintentional pattern of teaching people to avoid discomfort instead of actually expanding through their discomfort. Okay, so I'm going to go over some of these coaching traps that I see are keeping people stuck. And it's not because the coaches that use these approaches have any bad intentions. It's just because some of these approaches seem supportive on the surface, but they're actually reinforcing fear, they're reinforcing dependency, and even stagnation. So I'm going to challenge some ideas that you may even be using currently in your coaching, or you think are good approaches, but I think the personal growth world has actually gotten backwards. All right, so let's go into the first one. The first coaching trap is trying to get your clients to remove their fear. So it's asking your client if they have a fear because they are, thinking of taking a certain action or making a decision, going out of their comfort zone. One trap is when you're asking your client questions like, how can we remove the fear? A lot of coaches accidentally encourage their clients to think their fear is a problem and it's something they have to solve before action can happen. But fear is a very normal byproduct of growth. It's a very normal thing that happens when you're doing things where there's uncertainty or taking some risk. If you're expanding your leadership, entrepreneurship is filled with fear. Any kind of change you're going through in life is going to have fear. So if a client thinks they need to become fearless before they can take action, or if you, as a coach, also feel like you need to feel fearless before you can launch your business or share content, this is going to cause you to wait forever. Think about all the things that people go through in their lives where they are experiencing change and going through transitions. Maybe it's, changing a relationship status or having a hard conversation. They might have some fear, but the goal is not to eliminate fear. A much better coaching question, instead of how can we remove the fear, is how can you move forward with the fear? How can you move with the fear? Or what would courage look like here? What would courage look like here? Courage is not the absence of fear. It's moving despite there being fear. So let's say that there is a coach that wants to start sharing, let's say they want to start sharing podcast episodes like what I do, but they might say, well, I'm really terrified that people in my network might start to judge me if they see that I'm starting a coaching business and starting to create a podcast. A very weak coaching approach would be, well, how can you stop feeling so afraid? How can you get rid of the fear? How could you overcome the fear? A much stronger approach is, what if we allowed the fear to come with you? If we allowed the fear to come with you, what would you share anyway? What would you post anyway? What would you do? Or what would the courageous version of you do right now? What would the courageous version of you do? So that's the first big coaching trap. It's thinking that fear is something you have to eliminate and something that's bad, and it's not at all. It's something that comes along for the ride whenever you're growing. All right, coaching trap number 2. This one I see happen all the time. We're often correcting our students in the academy. I mean, we have lots and lots of feedback we give our coaches as they go through our program from all different angles, all different instructors, myself included. We're giving them lots of eyes and ears on their coaching so they can show up at their best and feel like they are really making the biggest impact in their sessions. So here's another trap we see often. It's this question that coaches ask. And the question is, well, what feels most comfortable for you right now? What's the most comfortable thing you can do right now? And on the surface, it might sound like a reasonable question, right? What's something that feels comfortable? But this question actually reinforces stagnation because it over prioritizes comfort. Think about why people hire coaches in the first place. It's not to stay in their comfort zone. It's to get out of it, right? It's to create changes and make bold decisions, get new results in their life. Growth is an uncomfortable process, right? So if you ask clients questions like, what feels comfortable for you to do right now? This is what will cause them to continue hiding and procrastinate and stay small. Growth is inherently uncomfortable, right? Because it requires you are becoming unfamiliar to yourself. You're evolving into a new version of yourself. How do we grow? We go out of our comfort zone. Growth is what asks you to actually think differently and behave differently and make new decisions. And a lot of people assume that if there is discomfort, maybe something's wrong. But actually, discomfort is the feeling you have when your old self no longer fits you anymore. Right? The version of you that creates a bigger life is probably a version of you that's going to start speaking up more, asking for more, taking up more space, allowing yourself to be more visible, making decisions that the current version of you might think is unreasonable or unrealistic and certainly uncomfortable, right? That's what you're going to feel. And that's why growth can feel a bit disorienting because you're not just changing your circumstances, you're actually changing your self-concept. So a much better coaching approach would be asking a question like, how can we increase your capacity for discomfort, right? If a client is wanting to stay comfortable, how could we increase your capacity for discomfort? Or a question like, what discomfort are you willing to tolerate in service of your future? What discomfort are you willing to tolerate now in service of your future? The people who actually create extraordinary lives are not the people who avoid discomfort. They're ones that normalize it. So let's say, I'll give you an example that a client says that they might say something like, well, I'm more comfortable keeping my coaching business kind of private until I really know that it's going to work. So they're wanting to keep things comfortable. A really strong coaching response would be, what if discomfort is actually the price of visibility? Okay, you want to ask your clients questions that encourage them to lean into the discomfort and increase their capacity to be with the discomfort, not try to create more comfort or think they need more comfort. You can ask a question like, how can you become someone who is comfortable being uncomfortable, right? That's the only thing we want our clients to be more comfortable with, being uncomfortable. And another powerful question you could ask is, what can you feel certain about through all this uncertainty, right? Because there's so much discomfort and that because of the uncertainty. So what is something you can feel certain about through all this discomfort and this uncertainty? And they might say something like, I can trust myself. I can adapt. I can figure things out as I go. Okay, let's go into the third big coaching trap. This one also, I see it happen all the time. It is asking the question, well, what are you ready for? Or what are you motivated to do? What are you ready to do? What are you motivated to do? This is a big, big trap. It sounds very supportive when you ask clients questions like, what are you motivated to do? What do you feel ready to do or prepared to do right now? But it actually trains their clients to let their feelings decide their actions. And this is a limiting way to live. Okay, all the most meaningful things that happen in life are things that you probably didn't feel ready for, but you took action anyway. Like a lot of people who are parents, sometimes I'll ask, well, when did you feel ready to become a parent? A lot of people will say like they didn't actually ever feel fully ready for it. Or even when it comes to starting a business, right? You're never going to feel totally ready to do that, or taking up more space, doing public speaking. Maybe it's even romantically when you fall in love with somebody, start a relationship. So it's this feeling of readiness that keeps people trapped, thinking that they need to actually feel ready. A much better approach would be to ask clients a question like, what can you do before you feel ready? Okay, your feelings and your mood must be independent of your action if you really want to have extraordinary results with your clients and even in your own life, right? So what are you right now waiting to feel ready for that you know is holding you back? What are you right now thinking, I'm not ready, I want to do this, I want to pursue this, but I just don't feel ready? It's really important to look at that because the readiness will never appear. You've got to take action even without feeling totally ready. You don't want to ask clients questions like, well, what are you ready to do? Or what would help you feel more ready? What needs to happen so you can feel more ready? These are big no-nos. Don't use those questions with your clients. Okay, you can contrast them with a much stronger approach, like what can you do before you feel ready? It's such a great coaching question. Another question you can ask is, what would happen if you stopped making your feelings the requirement for action? How do you want to show up regardless of your current mood? How do you want to show up regardless of your current mood? Okay, so this is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have in coaching, is that readiness must come before action, when in reality, readiness is built through action. And a lot of people are just waiting till they feel more confident, certain, qualified, prepared before they take a leap. But those feelings don't arrive beforehand. They arrive after you move. So every bold action that you take creates this evidence in your brain where you start thinking, okay, I survived that. I handled that. Maybe I am more capable than I thought. But those thoughts happen after you take action. Having the readiness and the confidence, it's rarely born in isolation through just thinking alone. It's actually built through living life and having experiences of courage. You actually become ready by doing the thing, not by endlessly preparing to do the thing. So readiness often comes after action. You don't want to reinforce this idea with your clients that they can only act when their emotions are fully cooperating. All right, let's go into the fourth trap. This one's really big. It is needing to feel and be authentic. And I know this one is going to sound a little odd at first. Authenticity is really, on the surface, it's like a really important thing that we talk about, how important it is to be authentic. It sounds beautiful, right? Do what makes you feel authentic. But oftentimes, people actually use authenticity as a way to justify staying the same. So here's what I mean by that. If you say that something feels authentic to you, what it actually means is that it just feels familiar and it feels safe. It's something that avoids judgment or exposure, and it protects your current identity. And I really think that authenticity is very overrated because what feels authentic is often limiting. So what you might wonder, what is a much stronger approach to take in your coaching? Instead of focusing on what feels authentic with your clients, focus on what feels aligned. Okay, when I say aligned, I mean it's aligned with the version of you that you want to become. So I always picture like there's this, like there's who you are right now. Let's call that your current self. And then there's this like beam of light or this string that is extending outward from you, and it's leading to your future self. So when I think about alignment, I think, okay, what is that thing that actually allows me to take some steps forward, pull that string or that rope, and bring me closer to my future self? So I actually imagine a line when I think about the word aligned. There's a line connecting you to your future self. All right, when you think about what's authentic, that just means what's authentic to your current self. Okay, it's just what is safe for you, and it just preserves your current identity. But when you're looking to grow and evolve, you need to shed your current self. You need to take off the layers of what has felt authentic to you and instead do what feels aligned, what's actually going to move you forward. Okay, when you think about your authentic self that you have right now, it's shaped by your past experiences, it's shaped by your comfort zone. So here's a very practical example. When I got into coaching, I said that it didn't feel authentic for me to market myself. It didn't feel authentic for me to share my voice. It certainly didn't feel authentic for me 12 years ago to have a podcast or, have a book published. None of those things felt authentic because I had at the time a very limited definition of myself. And that was based off of all the rules I had about how I shouldn't take up space and how my voice doesn't matter and how people don't care. I had all of these rules that served me in some capacity and kept me safe. So whenever I started to think about expanding my leadership and starting a business and putting my ideas out there, I was terrified. None of it felt authentic. But all of those things felt aligned with the life I wanted to have and the version of me that I knew I wanted to grow into. So instead of thinking what feels authentic to me, I started leaning into what feels aligned, even if it is uncomfortable. Your growth is going to feel very unnatural at first. It's going to feel very inauthentic, but that doesn't mean that you should disregard it. Hey, this is so important for you and your clients to understand. Just because something feels unnatural, especially at first, doesn't mean that it's bad. Because if it's aligned with the version of you that you want to be, if it's allowing you to live with more purpose and impact more lives and honor the lifestyle that you want to live, then that's absolutely something that you want to move forward, even if it doesn't feel totally natural. So sometimes the next level of your life, it actually requires you being quite unfamiliar to yourself for a while. Authenticity is very overrated. There's so much emphasis, especially in the personal development world and the coaching industry, on trying to just do everything that keeps you authentic, when I really think it's all about alignment. All right, so that is the fourth big coaching trap. This one is around avoiding failure. So you are going to have clients that will come to you and say that they are afraid they're going to fail. They're worried about failure. And a lot of coaches fall right into that trap and they start thinking, okay, well, how could we make sure that you avoid a failure? How can we prevent you from failing? When really failure is necessary whenever you are in pursuit of something meaningful, right? Failure is just a normal experience to have. So a much better coach approach is to help clients redefine their understanding of failure. We actually want to help our clients fail faster without making it mean that there's something wrong with them. Because if we are living our lives avoiding any kind of failure, that ends up creating a life where you're stuck with perfectionism, you're procrastinating, you're overthinking, and you're really shrinking yourself down. It's really hard to live a meaningful life if you avoid failure, right? So we want to ask our clients how they can redefine failure so that it actually serves them. One of the things I like to also believe is that any kind of work or effort I put into something, it's either working for me or it's working on me. So I'll give you a practical example. There was a time years ago when I did my very first workshop and I had all these people sign up for it, and I was expecting to have a really big event, and I thought I was going to enroll lots of clients from doing that workshop. And when it came to be the time to prepare and present the workshop, I showed up, I had everything set up, and only one person attended. And I devoted myself to that person. I actually dropped all of the content I thought I was going to share in that workshop, had a really amazing conversation. She didn't end up hiring me as a client. And after she left, I had this interesting reflection about the whole experience, because part of my brain was like, well, that was an epic failure. I was expecting all these people in the room. I had all these chairs laid out, and I only had one person attend. But then a wiser part of me came through, and I realized, you know what? What if this was exactly what needed to happen? What if this wasn't failure at all? I was able to impact someone's life. And I feel like my leadership grew a little bit just because I was I showed up anyway, regardless. I could have just not showed up at all and canceled it. I could have just let my fear get in the way. So I always lean into if something, it's either working for me or it's working on me. And that has been something that's allowed me to fail and embrace failure over and over again as I've gone from having like low attendance, hard to attract clients, to making millions in the coaching industry. So it's so important with your clients that you help them redefine their understanding of what failure actually means. I like to distinguish failure into two different flavors. There's good failure and there's bad failure. Good failure is when you are having setbacks, normal setbacks, and you're making mistakes, you're falling down in the pursuit of something bigger, right? So it's when you are having a big goal, you're doing something that's helping you create a more meaningful life. You're going to have experiences where you have setbacks and fall down. That's like the good failure that you want to have. That's a good thing. So that's why I call it good failure. Bad failure, the failure that you actually want to look out for, is the failure of never actually trying, not actually betting on yourself or giving yourself a chance. That's the failure where you're just chugging along in your life, tolerating people, circumstances that no longer are aligned with the life you want to live, and you're taking yourself out of opportunities. You're letting your fear make decisions for you. That kind of failure is the bad failure, because that's what leads to stagnation, and it also leads to regret. It leads to a life where you are emotionally unfulfilled. So it's so important to help your clients distinguish between those two failures, because instead of trying to get them to avoid failure when they're moving towards big goals, all we want to do is normalize that and see how they're learning and how they're growing from that good failure. Okay, so that's another trap, is thinking that you have to avoid all kinds of failure with your client. Oftentimes failure is a good thing, especially if it's helping your client grow. Okay, let's go into the sixth coaching trap, the last one for this episode. It is focusing on what feels realistic. And this one it's so pervasive in the coaching industry, because I think a lot of people have heard of the SMART goal framework, SMART. Maybe you've heard that before, where and according to that framework, you're supposed to ask yourself certain questions as you are creating a goal. And that R in the word SMART stands for realistic. I think some people interpret it as reasonable, but some people interpret it as realistic. But whatever it might be, a lot of people, coaches, think that realistic is an important quality that one must have when they are taking action and creating goals. All right. So it is so important that when your clients are making bold decisions, it's actually going to seem ridiculous, and it's going to seem unreasonable, and it's going to feel unrealistic, but that's okay, because that means they're just onto something really big. They're taking a bold action. When you think about what's actually realistic to you, like really sit with that question for a moment. What's realistic? What feels realistic? The only thing that would feel realistic is something that you already have evidence of. So it's something you've already experienced, something that's already in your belief system. But if you only do things that seem and feel realistic and reasonable, the best that you'll do is just reinforce the life that you have. Are you following me here? The best that you'll do if you only take actions that seem reasonable and realistic is you will just reinforce more of what you already have. You know that expression, what got you here won't get you there? We want to really think about that when it comes to our clients and their relationship with what's realistic and what's reasonable. So if a client is saying, well, I don't know if it's realistic for me to do this or try this, we want to help our clients understand that it's not about it being realistic. Whenever you expand your life, you're actually redefining your reality, right? Like if I look at my life 12 years ago before I got into coaching, like all the actions I was taking, they didn't seem realistic or reasonable, but it also would have not been realistic to that version of me at the time to think about living the life that I have now, with like all the freedom and all the income and all the people whose lives I've been able to transform, like all these incredible opportunities that opened up. None of that seemed realistic at the time, but by taking unrealistic steps and doing bold things that were very unreasonable. That's what helped me achieve this new version of reality. So only do what's realistic if you want to reinforce your current definition of reality, right? Like if anyone pursues things that only feel realistic, then you're not going to have an extraordinary life at all. And maybe you've gone through transitions in your life that kind of felt unrealistic at one point, right? Maybe like the idea of quitting a job or moving to a new location or just shifting your careers. Like it might have seemed unrealistic to you to do that, but maybe you've done it, or maybe you want to do that. So just something to sit with. If a client is saying, well, I don't know if, like I hear this all the time when people looking to get into coaching will say, I don't know if it's realistic to make $20,000 a month as a coach. I mean, I was one of those people that used to think that 10,000, 20,000, like, is it really realistic? Should I lower the goal? And a much stronger response to a concern like that as a coach is, what if the goal isn't realistic for your current identity, but it actually is becoming realistic for your next identity, right? What if your goal isn't realistic for it's not realistic for your current identity, but it's becoming realistic for your next identity? Or a question like, what would need to become true about you for this to actually become your new normal? What would need to become true about you? I really love this question. What would need to become true about you for this to become your new normal? Right? This might be really helpful to think about if you have goals to be making $10,000, $20,000 or more per month in coaching. What if realism is just a reflection of your current level of exposure? Right? If you do what's realistic, you create a very predictable life, but expansion requires that you actually expand your idea of what you see reality to be. So as we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Coaching is not about helping people live a life where they never feel any fear, any discomfort, any rejection, failure, or insecurity. Coaching is about helping people expand their capacity to handle all of those things. A meaningful life requires discomfort, right? It requires doing things that don't feel authentic. And that's really the shift that you want to make in your coaching if you want to go from being an okay coach to being an extraordinary coach. So notice these rules that your clients might have, and maybe even you have, that could be limiting the power of your sessions. Rules like just be authentic, or wait until you feel ready. Just do what feels realistic. Do what's comfortable. Avoid failure because failure is bad. All of these rules actually limit you, and they limit your clients. So these are some of the biggest coaching traps that I see happen a lot in sessions. And before we go, I have an interview that I had with one of our coaches in the academy. So I'm going to share that with you. They're going to give you some of their tips for how you can be successful as a coach. So enjoy their story, and I will see you in the next episode.
Hi, I'm Lauren Bartelt. I discovered coaching after my son was born. I was working in an industry that didn't feel like a fit for my new identity and new lifestyle. So I was looking for a career that would give me the opportunity to use my gifts and have meaningful work while also offering freedom and flexibility. I had always dreamed of being an entrepreneur, and I had never really had the courage to go for it. I had these dreams. I knew that I had more to offer and didn't really know how to make those dreams a reality. I was really drawn to the academy for a few reasons, and I found the program comparison chart on the website really helpful. I wanted ICF accreditation. I specifically was drawn to the business mentorship offered in TCA, and the lifetime access to the training was a huge selling point for me. After my admissions call with Frank, I just had such a genuine vibe, and I felt at that point I didn't need to interview anyone else, and that it was TCA for me. When I was first enrolling in the academy and thinking about becoming a coach, I had a lot of fears around whether coaching was legitimate. And this really boiled down to my fear of what other people would think about me pursuing this career path and switching industries. I had developed this identity in my former role. And I thought, well, what will people think? I really have come full circle in owning what I want and what I'm passionate about, and finding that when I'm excited about something and really believe in it, other people believe in it too. I've gone from being afraid to put myself out there and tell people that I'm a coach to spreading it all over my social media, posting consistently about my journey. I have several clients. I've found that I'm doing what I'm meant to do, and there's no better feeling than that. My favorite things about the Academy, there are so many. How can I even list them all? The classroom environment is just so fun and engaging. And I'm somebody who really needs an engaging environment to stay focused. All of the instructors are so wonderful. The material is solid. And the community of folks, growth-minded people in the Academy, the students are incredible. Not to mention the challenges that just keep you moving forward in your business. You are held accountable for applying what you've learned, and the accountability piece for me is huge. I truly feel unstoppable after going through the academy. I see so many possibilities opening up for me in my life, in my business. I see myself speaking on stages all over the country. I see myself earning an income that I never thought possible in my previous industry. I truly see myself applying the coaching concepts in my day-to-day life and my relationships. I see it improving every aspect of my life. If you are considering enrolling in Thriving Coach Academy, I would say wait no further. You are going to get so much out of being part of this community, both personally and professionally. My best advice to you is play full out. You are going to get out of this what you put into it. You will need to start before you feel ready. You want to raise your hand at every opportunity, take big risks, do it scared. You'll be amazed at what you can accomplish with the support of TCA. I'm so grateful for having been part of this community. I can't thank Frank and the staff and the instructors enough. It is incredible. Your future self will thank you for signing up for TCA, and I can't wait to be part of this community forever and always.
Hey, would you like access to powerful coaching tools you can use on yourself and clients right away? For being a listener of the podcast, I'm giving you a VIP guest pass to get a sneak peek into my coach training program. Inside, you'll learn our coaches' secret tool they use to transform their clients' lives. And you'll also get a training on how to launch a coaching business. Just head over to www.thrivingcoachacademy.com/VIP to get started. I'll see you on the inside.